So at a top level, when we think about the regulatory picture for our organization, we want to be able to instantly see how are we doing, any particular gaps that we see, areas that might be not applicable, what have we interpreted and say that we are covered and are able to prove and show that to regulators. But also in here, we really wanted to make sure that we create that waterfall effect. To basically say, every standard has requirements, but many other standards have requirements within requirements. And many of you are probably familiar with this concept that if I start to break down COBIT 5 as an example, we can see the requirements here. We've got about 5 requirements. And at that particular requirement level, that top level, I already get some covered percentage, some metrics that I can see as far as what is fully covered and things perhaps that we haven't started yet. So as I open this up, I'm able to dive into the lower level requirements, and you can see that waterfall effect that I mentioned just a couple moments ago. So really kind of nesting the sub-requirements and requirements together. What's powerful about this is it allows our customers to make some decisions to go, where do I want to spend most of my time? Do I really want to get into the weeds and do a lot of robust association and interpretation, show all the controls that we have in place? Or the trade-off there is, from the amount of time from a business perspective to do all that activities, maybe we do just want to have a look at it from the top level requirement level and show that we have it covered and rationalize it from there. So as an example, I'm going to take us into one of the COBIT requirements here, which is around managing programs and projects. We can see here that really as we start to consider this particular requirement to our organization, the first thing we want to say is, hey, it doesn't even apply to us. And that's an important decision that sort of changes the nest underneath. It sort of wipes it away and says, we don't need to worry about it. It doesn't apply to us. The other side of it is, if it is something that we should be really considering and proving out, do we have it covered, yes or no? And as I mentioned, that whole idea of rationalizing this requirement and saying we do have it covered, here's all the things that we're doing underneath it to prove. So whether it's strong governance or activities that we show, policies, if we can really go through and talk about that and show that we have confidence around it, we give our customers the confidence to say, great, let's say it's covered, let's put in our rational, and we don't need to really interpret it any further by mapping to controls. And I have a good example here under COSO that I'm going to dive into. There's a good example here around selecting and developing controls over technology. So I'm going to open that up. And we can see that as an organization, we made a decision that it is important to us that we show we've interpreted and we've covered it at that lower level here. And even as we sort of dive across, we can see, were there any issues that have been identified from our control activities, even at this top level? So as I scroll in here, it's applicable, it's covered, we do have some rationalization, but what is better than pointing to all the controls that we have in our control libraries, our risk libraries, and saying, here's the things that we're actively working on within the organization. So we've got an IT general control here that we are doing some testing. We can see the aggregate effort of where we are. So what's passed, what's failed. There's that issue that we spotted just a moment ago. And here's all the other controls in that family that are a part of us interpreting that requirement as well. At any point, if I say, hey, it's not applicable to us, obviously that's going to inform how this top register looks. The top mapping here, if I just click on not applicable and then select away and only look at COBIT as an example, it will show me that. So we'll show, hey, here's the one that's been wiped away. And of course, we can just look at what's covered, what's fully applicable across one or multiple frameworks at the top level here. There's also a lot of really interesting things that have been done from a search parameter perspective, which I think is important too, because organizations that are mature, that are thinking of hundreds of requirements, as this is built out, we want to be able to search through every single requirement and sub-requirement and look at the things that might be a part of what we're targeting. Without really showing too much more, there is that summary compliance report, which I kind of call the Keep Regulator Happy report. And what that really helps us to do is to take all the standards and requirements that we have, show exactly what's covered, what's not applicable, show the aggregate report of everything that sort of proves out the efforts we've done, and then just, hey, great, here it is, Mr. and Mrs. Regulator, have a look. We've done a lot of really good stuff here. And we've shown that from a GRC perspective, we're considering regulatory compliance management, but also all of our internal control frameworks.